I'm presenting it. Are you seeing it now?
Yes, sir. Now I able to see.
See that I'm just changing. We'll see whether you are able to see the change also.
Okay.
Hmm. Are you seeing it?
Yes, sir. I can see the changes, sir.
Changes also you are seeing.
Yes, sir. I able to.
File is changing. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop sharing it and I'll.
Yes, sir. Yes, dear participants, kindly mute your audio so that you will be able to hear our today's resource person talk. And don't go for presentation mode. Kindly click on join to experience the webinar series. I also request the participants to pin Alexander Praveen sir, Dr. Alexander Praveen Durai sir, to have a effective visualization of PowerPoint presentation. Okay, it's time. Good morning, everyone. VPG Department of Commerce. Thankful to our founder, Reverend Father Dr. J. Arulraj, Management, our Administrator Sister, Reverend Sister Dr. Santiago Mary, Principal Dr. R. Ruben, our own Vice Principal, Mrs. Shamla Alexander, and our motivator, Reverend Father Dr. Arakla Sami, Head of the Department, and dear participants. I welcome you all to the international webinar series. I'm extremely delighted to begin our international webinar series 7. These 2 days webinar is about research. Research person for each and every session for the webinar series are unique in their different fields. Research is field of uniqueness when we learn it. When you are on the field of the teaching, you are an innovator, creator, and researcher. Research process already began. You are already in the field now. We found a unique person who is expert in the field of researching. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Alexander Praveen Durai, Head of the Department and Associate Professor of Commerce, to end research on cognitive in dissertation. Sir also Director of Pondicherry University and St. Joseph College MBA Twinning Program, Dean School of Management Studies and UGC Affairs at his own college, visiting faculties at Tiruchirappalli branch of the Southern Indian Regional Council Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, coordinator of international collaboration and international student cell since 2013, member of St. Joseph College governing body, authorized books on human resource management published by Pearson Education International Publisher, New Delhi in 2010. Suggested textbooks by AICTE in its model syllabus for PG Diploma in Management Program PGDM, included as textbook reference for MBA and BBA programs of 2019 universities, and several autonomous colleges in India included BITS Pilani, Ghana Institute of Management, and Public Administration Republic of Ghana adopted this book as a textbook for its MBA program. Principle of Management, POM, published by Pearson Education International Publisher, New Delhi in 2015, and the second edition in 2019. Authors of a custom book on management along with Philip Kotler, James A.F. Stoner, J. Iser, Alan Mugleman, Arthur J. Keon, William G. Sullivan, Lawrence J. Jitman, and Raymond M. Brooks for Gujarat Technological University. Carried out Indian adoption of the international book Managing Human Resource, authored by Louis Gomes, David Balkan, and Robert Cardy. 10 scholars are awarded PhD degrees, 2 scholars waiting for Viva examination, and 8 scholars are pursuing their PhD programs on various topics of interest. 42 scholars received MPhil degrees, published 38 articles in journals and magazines of national importance, resource person for various international and national and also state level seminars and workshops on the topic human resource management, motivation and leadership. Conducts personality development, faculty development programs and orientation programs for college, staffs and students. Resource person for UGC Academic Staff College of various universities in Tamil Nadu. Manuscript reviewer of Pearson Education, New Delhi. Member of IQAC Office College and Fatima College, Madurai member of the Academic Council of Arul Andar College Autonomous, Madurai. With this uncompleted note of achievement, I request Dr. Alexander Praveen Durai sir to take over the session. Please, sir, please
Thank
address
you.
the participants.
Yeah, thank you very much. At the outset, I express my heartfelt gratitude to the administrator, principal, vice principal, head of the department, faculty coordinator, and all others for inviting me to be the resource person for today's international webinar on research writing. I also thank all the participants for joining this session. At the outset, I must say that it is quite some time since I moved from research, core research, to book writing and case study writing. At present, I am working with the e-learning company and Pearson Education on the preparation of adaptive case studies, which means the software-based case studies. As you may all be aware very well, we all are moving towards digital teaching. And in one of the TV programs I watched, all the participants happened to be the CEOs. They said that CEOs of various companies, they said they are in no mood to come back to the old normalcy. And they feel that the new normal is going to be the permanent normal. And that is why all the publishers and e-learning companies, they join and they do a collaborative work. And there is a competition among these publishing companies and e-learning company to adopt the whole system of education. So everything is going to be software based. Of course, we will have that option of blended learning, blended teaching, offline and online teaching. And Reverend Father Adikalam happened to be my scholar. When your scholar asks something, you cannot refuse. Especially when the scholar happened to be a priest, and you have all sort of hesitation to say no. And of course, I said yes, and I am here sitting in front of you. Today, I'm going to discuss about the overview of researchers. I'm not getting into the specific details of how to write. Of course, I'll be just referring to that here and there. But by and large, I'm going to see what is happening and what are the basic things we need to know to be a best and a successful researcher. I'm going to speak out of my experience in successfully guiding 12 PhD researchers who have completed it, and 2 are waiting for their viva, and another 8 are there, etc. Based on that, I'm going to share what is in my mind, what is in my heart about the whole research happening in India. You may be knowing that India comes in the top 5 countries in the world in terms of number of publications. How many articles are published? India comes exactly in the 5th position. Ahead of India, we have USA, China, UK, and Germany. And there are 5 other countries. So we are in the top 10 in terms of publications, and we are in the middle. And we need to be very happy about it, because when it is in terms of quantity, we are doing rather well. But there is also another aspect to any activity. What is the quantity? What is the quality? In quality also, we are doing okay. We are doing satisfactorily well. When it comes to citation, they say that the research survey says that we are at the bottom of the top 10. They're not out of 10, but we are at the bottom of top 10. And there is a feeling that the Indian researchers never, not all, many, never care to ensure the quality of researchers. Why it is so? It is for the simple reason. Our aim of doing research is for our career purpose. But in most foreign countries, especially in developed countries, the purpose of research is to invent something, innovate something, and get a pattern out of it. Once you get a pattern out of it, that will be a regular income for you. Now, you know what is happening in case of this COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the countries are competing with one another to develop vaccine. Why they do that? Of course, they want to help the mankind. But there is other reason, commercial reason behind it. Once you patent your product, and whoever uses that, they will get royalty out of it. How long they will get the royalty? As long as the medicine is produced, they will get the royalty. And there will be a share for the university also. Now, Oxford University is involved. They are one of the leading testers in vaccine production. And India, it is said that they have ordered, likely to order, the Serum Institute, which is collaborating with the Oxford. They said they are going to place an order for 100 crore doses of vaccine once it is ready, and they are expecting it will be ready in due course of time. So a lot of money is generated for the university also. And this is how the higher education ecosystem was. So the research and teaching are very closely interrelated. In fact, they are interdependent on one another. But unfortunately, in India, there is a dichotomy, there is a gulf between the teaching and the research. We think that teaching is different from research. Research is different from innovation. And you must be knowing that is why NAC and NIRF, our accreditation agencies, are giving importance for research activities. And as you may be knowing, NIRF, which is working with this Thomson Reuters, they are giving 20 to 25% weightage for researchers. I don't know how many of us know that. This is the case for every institution, whether it's arts and science college, engineering, medicine, law college, whatever it may be, universities, they give weightage. But they say that the Clarivate Analytics, which is the London-based company, which is an advisor for NIRF, they say that they want all the institution to take up research. For what sort of research? They want us to take up the real research. How do we know a research is a real research or not? It is very simple. No, I'm not saying they are saying. How many citations we are getting out of? And they say that in Indian publications, 61% gets no citation. 85% gets one citation. That means that 61% included in 85%. 85% gets only one citation. That is hardly 24% of the articles get one citation. And the Google Scholar, they say that nearly 14 to 15% of the articles published in India get no hits. Nobody sees that. And close to 30%, that is 25 to 30% of the article gets only one hit. If nobody is going to see our article, what is the purpose of writing the article? Then the other study says most of the Indian articles are focused towards policy formulation and policy suggestions. It is not focused towards innovation and further researches. It is not towards any particular outcome like patent. Whether this is the case with regard to pure science, or we call it as hard science, and the social sciences, or we call it as applied sciences. In every case, this is the fact. Of course, the government is planning to integrate us with QS ranking. Of course, they have already started the process. When it comes to QS ranking, they give a lot of weightages for research, innovations, that incubation activities, number of patents required, all this. If you say NAC, if you take the case of NAC, if you get one patent, means 1 point is assured. Every single patent, you get a complete mark. Why do they say? Because that is the very purpose of research. And then there is another one, or a fallacy, that research has nothing to do with the teaching. No. The quality of teaching depends upon the extent of research taken up by an institution. When I talk about research, I don't mean only that article writing. It may be the research article, it may be the research project, it may be the research-based case studies, or it may be the book writing, or it may be editing the books. Some research activities might happen, but those research must be a serious research. Now the question is whether we do serious researches in our institution. Now they say that when it comes to researchers, they say the government, autonomous institution, government institutions, autonomous institutions, and the pressure groups. We call it as groups, research groups. In this way, researches are happening here. But unfortunately, the autonomous institutions' performance is not very effective when compared with the others. Perhaps the fund may be the problem. We don't know. But when it comes to the colleges, especially arts and science colleges, now there is a dying need to improve the quality of researchers. How to improve the quality? Who will be responsible? In my opinion, though everyone is responsible, the management is responsible, the department is responsible, the government is responsible, the ultimate responsibility for quality research rests with the researchers. You may be knowing, if you had seen a National Geographic channel or Discovery channel, people would spend their whole lifetime, 15 years, 10 years, 20 years in the forest. They will do a research on the behavioral aspects of a particular animal. If you ask them, why do you do that? They will say, we are working towards getting a PhD. I'm not saying that you must spend all your lifetime to get a research, but within that 3 year earmarked for doing research, we must be very sincere. I'm going to discuss with you how this can be done. What qualities as a researcher you need to improve so that you become a better researcher than who you are today. I'll just display my PPT right now. I hope it is visible to everybody, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right,
Yes.
good. So now to cognize the overview means to get to know about the whole gamut of dissertation or thesis or project work, as you call it at PG level, we say project work, UG level project work, MPhil now in Indian context, MPhil level we say dissertation, and at PhD level we call it as thesis. But these are all fundamentally based on researchers. Now I'm going to explain to you how the whole ecosystem of higher education should function. We must know the important role played by us as researchers. We do a good job as teachers. We do a good job as educationists. But what is our role as a researcher can be better understood if we know the purpose of doing a research. As an educator, we have to have a very innovative, modern curriculum, a state-of-the-art instructional delivery. That if you talk in terms of NAAC point of view, we say the first criterion, the curriculum aspects is referred to innovative curriculum. If you look at what is expected by NAAC, you will understand they are asking us to tell them what is the extent of innovation in our curriculum. When it comes to instructional delivery, that is the criterion to teaching, learning, and the evaluation, they want us to tell them what is the latest techniques we have used to ensure that there is a quality delivery takes place in the classrooms. And here they say that student should be the focal point of any activities, not the teacher. So the teacher need to be always adaptive to what is happening around them, whether it is innovative curriculum or instruction, which is possible only that teacher is involved in researchers. In research, what is expected of anybody, a researcher or a teacher cum researcher? One has to be a quality guide, well-informed guide. And that researcher is responsible for fundamental researches. We say developing certain theories, developing a new product, prototype, I would say. And then they will have to go for getting the patents. The patent has to be in the name of the institution. That is very, very important. Once you develop a product, and you get a pattern out of it. Now you go for innovation stage, or I would put it as collaboration stage. We cannot do. Now we know this COVID-19 vaccine. We see that Oxford University is developing the product. Only that much they can do it. Commercialization can be done only by industries. Here comes the collaboration of the industries. So in through industries, we go for development of the product, large scale investment of the product, and then we go for commercialization. As you may be knowing, every product must undergo certain trials, whether it is a clinical trial or animal trial or human trial. Any product that has to be taken through this process, which is not possible for any university or institution to do that. So they get industries into the picture and they do it through them. And here, from fundamental research, it moves to applied research. We apply our knowledge. This application of knowledge is very important, because through application of knowledge, we get the skills. We get to know what sort of reaction is we are getting from the users or the end users, and then technically we correct the product. Then finally, you go for a mass production of the product. We are in a right context to correlate ourselves with this particular concept which I'm explaining with you. Because of this COVID-19, we every day when you switch on the TV, you find information about Russia has developed this, China has developed this, India is going to release the product likely in August 15th. So many informations we are getting, and United Kingdom is in a very advanced stage, etc. That is why I say we are in a right context to discuss about how a higher education ecosystem supposed to work. Now you go for mass production, and the people start using it. How the educational institution benefit out of is out of the royalty which they get out of their patents. Whoever uses our product, whoever uses our patent will have to pay money for us, and that will help not only the institution but also the teachers. The institution benefit because it gets money. It can go for spending it on modernizing the institution, modernizing the equipments, paying better salary, etc. And this is how the whole ecosystem supposed to work. Does it work like that in India? In some of the top institutions, it is working like that. But in other institutions, what happened is this: every activity is working in isolation, like islands. Education is working differently, research is happening differently. We only when a NAC or NIRF forces us, we go for industry collaboration. Then only NIRF and NAC has to explain to us what is that industry collaboration, what is that MOU, what is that linkages, all that. And for innovation, they are compelling us to have our own startup innovation center, and everything is forced here, but it has to be a voluntary one. As you can see, how much importance is given for research by NAC. Even from NAC perspective, how our ecosystem works is it is working like that. And higher educational institutions are supposed to focus on three activities. One is on teaching, the other one is on research, and third one is on extension. A survey conducted in US says that the research has to start at the undergraduate levels. And that is why even the government is now, our government is also going to introduce a 3-month compulsory internship for all students. Internship is also a kind of research. If anything where the knowledge gets converted into skill, we can call it as a research. There are two different activities carried out in research. One, as I said earlier, pure research or fundamental research. Another one is applied research. In pure research, we gain theoretical knowledge. In applied research, we convert that knowledge into skills. So in research is a very prominent one. Without research, the teaching can happen. I don't say teaching will not happen. It will happen. But you have to depend on somebody else to improve your teaching. You have to see the syllabus of some other institution, a foreign institution or premier institution in the country to improve our teaching styles, improve our curriculum. But if we do researches at our own institution, we will know what is the current trend. Accordingly, we will be redefining, fine-tuning our teaching curriculum, teacher learning techniques, etc. So this is very, very important, and it is part of it. As I said earlier, education is fundamentally concentrates on imparting knowledge, but here the research is very important. I have been repeatedly say research, I mean internship, project work, dissertation, thesis and everything. That is important for converting that knowledge into skills. If somebody goes to an organization as an employee, he faces problem because in educational institution he stops with gaining knowledge. Such knowledge are not converted into skills. If you don't have the skills, you will face problem in transition. Within 6 months, most companies experience nearly 30 to 40% attrition. People leave the organization because they are not able to cope up with the demands of the companies wherein they are joining. That the manager, your mentor, will have no time to teach you from the fundamentals. And it is like learning by fire. And this research will provide you a hands-on training. There are so many expectations made out of research. But what happens is we think that research helps us in only one thing, getting you a job, or once you join the job, getting some incentives. That is not the case. That is not the aim of research. In India, when we ask nearly 80% of the people, why do you take insurance? They will say we get income tax benefits. But that is not the fundamental purpose of insurance. The purpose of insurance is to protecting the person from the financial losses. Financial indemnity is the very purpose of insurance, but we have moved away from that and we think that gaining income tax is the purpose. And that is why once the government withdraws income tax benefit for for these insurance policies, then all these insurance companies are in trouble because we have not properly understood the purpose. Similar thing has happened in case of researchers also. Now, I think I have given you the background of why it is very, very important that we do a real, genuine research. For whom we are doing a research? That is a very important question. Now we are in a COVID-19 era, and nobody knows what is going to be the future of everybody, future of education, future of entrepreneurship, future of corporates. Nobody knows what is going to happen. And this is, we call it as Joe Harry window theory, we call it as unknown unknown. Unknown unknown means we have no clue about what is going to happen. This we call it as crisis. That is a difference between problem management, risk management, and crisis management. In problem management, we know this is that problem and we manage it. And in risk management, we know the quantum of risk and how long this would last, etc. Then accordingly we manage. But in crisis comes suddenly, and we are not able to predict it is going to come. The scale and substance and the destruction to be caused, nothing would be known. So we make all our plans without knowing anything about the future. That is why even every government is struggling. They say there is a COVID, then there is a relapse, and they say they start their factories, they close the factories, they want to start the schools and colleges, they want to close it, they want to have the examination. So in that situation, we are living in that situation, and the unemployment rate is rising. It is rising across the globe, and now it is going to be a very competitive world. In this competitive world, everything matters, including the nature of research done by us. What sort of qualities we must have to become a good researcher who will have the confidence to face our prospective employers when we meet them in the interview table? Of course, in an online interview, there is one question which can be expected in any interview is about your project. Nothing else should be known. So there is only one field wherein we can expect question is our research. So the question is already there. Only thing is we must have the answer. And we must have an answer which is reliable, which is convincing. Who can do a good research? That is a very, very important one. If you talk about ISO 9000, ISI, and other things, they say that if the process is good, the output would be good. You take ISO, and I want every one of you just to go and read how this ISO is International Standard Organization. They are working. They don't bother about what is your output. They are bothered about process. Process means the human resources, the physical resources, and financial resources. How you manage that, and then they say that if your process is perfect, your product is bound to be good. And similarly, if you have all these qualities, if you are very sincere in your research, your output is going to be good, and you will benefit out of that good research. That is important. Now, what is expected of a researcher? There are two occasions, there are two situations, I might say, wherein guide takes care of everything and get you a degree, a research degree. The other one is the scholar does everything and he earns the degree. He doesn't get the degree, he earns the degree with all his work and knowledge. Earns the degree, and that degree will stand in good faith for him wherever he goes. He will have the confidence to speak about his research. Gone are the days when we were trying for government postings and this and that. Now they say that even the existing post will continue, nobody knows. Now we have this online teaching, and they say that 20% of our courses will be converted into online courses. What will happen for those who are teaching those people? Nothing will happen. There will be no new recruitment for a few years. If the government is very serious about it, then there are 20% of the courses will be converted on online, and there will be credit transfer. Your student will learn some other course from some other institution for his program he registered with your institution, and he will go to, let's say, BITS Pilani to do one particular course, online mode. He will get the course completed, he will get the course credit, and he will tell your controller of examination that he has completed that paper there, and then his credit will be included here. He need not do the same paper again in his own institution or in her own institution. This is how it is changing. So that what is the future, that nobody knows. Initially, if you take the new education policy, you would find the government is planning to introduce online teaching only for 20% of the courses. Now, what is going to happen? We don't know. And now they say SWAYAM courses, NPTEL courses. We said you just encourage your students to do that. But now what happens is they talk about virtual universities. If your students can complete the whole degree without coming to an institution, and all these are happening. So your research, your genuine research will speak for it. That is why I said, gone are those days we used to depend too much on our guides to complete our project. That project, that is also still possible, but that will not serve any intended purpose. The intended purpose is whatever may be, that intended purpose will not be served hereafter. The intended purpose will be served only through the second option. You become the master of your research. You become everything of your research. So how to be a good researcher? It's very simple, I tell you. It is very, very simple. The first one is you need not depend too much on your guide for everything. Sometimes the scholars will come and ask what subject I have to study, where I have to start. No, research is not about studying a particular subject. That can happen at a later stage. First and foremost one is you must be a continuous reader. I won't say you read this subject. You are doing a research on human resources management. You read only about human. I will never say that. You read about marketing. There will be marketing researchers. You read about finance. You read about operations. You read about systems. And everything is interdependent. You may be knowing that the government is going to introduce liberal arts program. Once I visited an institution in New York, I was very surprised. The biggest building in that college was for a liberal arts program. I just asked them, Why there is such a huge building for liberal arts? And they said that is the students prefer that program. Companies prefer those people who complete this liberal arts. I'm not promoting that particular program. What is that liberal arts? You study whatever you want to study. Suppose you are supposed to get 122 credit means for nearly 42 credits, you can choose. I am a commerce professor. Supposing I am a commerce scholar. I can study botany, physics, computer science, English, whatever I want, I can study. Just I'll have to, everybody will be offering that courses, and I'll have to pick it up and do that program, which will get added to my credit. Why they promote multidisciplinary research or multidisciplinary aspects is no decision can be taken with single knowledge. No decisions can be taken in isolation. You have to have a knowledge of everything. Earlier, we thought an engineer, when he has to construct a bridge, he need to know only the engineering aspects. Now they say he must know the environment aspect, he must know the financial aspect, how much finance should be lost, he must know about the economic, the implications of his decisions, and he is supposed to know everything. That is why if you want to be a good researcher, what you need to do is you must read everything. And only when the tank is full, the flow of water through the tap will be faster. When the overhead tank is half full or empty, and when you open the tap, you will get only air. In a crowd of persons, in a crowd of scholars, if you are not able to speak anything, means you can be sure your overhead tank is not full. I mean, overhead tank means my brain. If I have a lot of information in my brain, I don't need to wait for anybody to speak. I'm talking about the relevant speech. That is where this voracious reading is rather important. Once you complete lot of knowledge, never leave out anything. Never think any knowledge is irrelevant knowledge. What looks like a completely irrelevant knowledge will become a very relevant knowledge in a particular context. When somebody asks you about your research topic or a research subject, you should be able to connect it with what you learned elsewhere. And when you talk about researchers, you also give some example about mushroom growth done by botany department, and that person will understand how deep is your knowledge. Once you become a continuous reader, now there is online. Online is a social media networks, and our Indian students most of the time they waste their time on social media, and we are the number one in wasting it also. We nearly spend 3 hours and 10 minutes on an average on social media. But when it comes to USA, it is only 2 hours and 15 minutes. You can check it. But so, what is the productivity of our activity? It is very minimal. When you go for social media, it shows very clearly it is for interest and time killing. We are going there. The same mobile phone, the same network, the same internet can be used for your subject also. I wish that you read lot about your subject, and you never go and ask your guide what you want to study, what he wants you to study. He won't be able to tell you, because you only know your requirements. How much knowledge I have, will I be able to speak confidently about my subject, about my research topic? You only will be able to say. But one thing I tell you, once you gain sufficient knowledge, nobody can stop you from speaking on your topic. Language is not at all a barrier. Nobody is going to see whether you are speaking in your vernacular or in a foreign language like English. Nobody's. What matters is how much knowledge you have, how effectively you are able to articulate it. Then you need to be, as a young people, then is it our millennial children, you must be tech savvy. What is that tech savvy? How this research helps? You complete your research work, you complete a chapter, and then you look for a English department professor to get it corrected, or you get an English department student to get it corrected. This is not at all needed. Now there are so many software is available. That Grammarly, and just for example, I'm saying Grammarly is available. So many other softwares are available. You just know for Grammarly, they are charging 2,500 per month. It does all correction work. Even if you have to pay more, you pay, because you are not going to pay permanently till you complete your research or till you complete the proofreading of your research. You make use of that. Why do you go and beg to somebody? And you know what you are doing is, when you go and ask an English teacher to do the corrections, you are exposing that English teacher also. Everybody comes out of the same society. All of a sudden, you say, but they may be running short of time, though so many things are there. But when you have a software available, when you have an alternative platform available, you have to become independent. And that is why I said in the beginning, you need to be independent in your researches. Don't depend on anybody. Now you don't need to depend on that. Then the other one, very important one, is how strong you are in methodology. I had been to a university as an external examiner. The researcher had come from another state. He has done reasonably good work. He was very sincere in his research work. I could see that from out of the way he presented his findings, suggestions, etc. But the university scholars, they were repeatedly asking him questions about methodology. How did you gather information? How did you analyze it? They were repeatedly hovering around that area. This man had absolutely no answer. And in front of my own eyes, I could see his whole research falling flat. Why? Because he never bothered to learn about methodology, methods and materials. He left everything to the statistician. He left everything to others. And here he was simply blinking. If a layman looks at what is happening there, he would understand that he knows nothing. So if you want to be a good researcher, spend a lot of time on learning the methodology. The first question, what is the nature of your research? Whether it is analytical study, exploratory study, empirical study, descriptive study, and the student will, whatever comes to his mind, he will answer without knowing what is an empirical study, what is exploratory, what is analytical, what is descriptive. You have to be, if you want to be a competent researcher, you must master the art of methodology. Then now other one wherein you must concentrate, which is very simple, is learning the basic statistics. Of course, you take any book on research methodology, you will find a chapter or two devoted to cover the statistical aspect. What is null hypothesis? What is alternative hypothesis? These are very, very simple things. They're very simple things. But the problem is we have developed a mental block towards statistics. We have a feeling that the statistics alien to me. I won't be able to. It is not at all like that. Yeah, why I am saying you must know the basic statistics. Even when you discuss with your guide or somebody else, and the guide will talk only in technical terms, he won't come down to your level to explain the statistics. At that time, if you just blink about what is factor analysis or correlation matrix or any other latest techniques, and if you blink, he would lose interest in discussing with you. Next time, he won't call you. Everybody wants to gain something new in a conversation. And even your guide wants to get some knowledge out of you. And you explain some statistical knowledge, or you just travel within in his discussions, and then you will gain the respect. That is what I have written as my last point. You have to gain the respect. It is not that only through statistics you will gain the respect. Even through methodology, even through your command over subjects, even through your technical knowledge, you will gain the respect of your guide. That is very important. And everything boils down to one aspect, that is the writing. You need not be an expert in writing in the initial stages. But as the days goes by, you have to develop the art of writing. And that is also, you'll have to go to the third point I said, you have to be a tech savvy. Again, I said, whatever you write, you just improve on it. Synonym is available. Just to click it, choose a better word and do it. It is a skill. Writing is a skill. A skill can be developed only by practicing it. You can be a better driver only by practicing it. You can be a better pilot only by flying, by depending on the flying hours. How much flying hours you completed will show how skilled a pilot you are. And similarly, the writing skills comes only through writing. But what unfortunately happens is, till the end, as far as possible, we avoid writing anything. Finally, your guide has to tell you, you start writing, then we will be blinking. Why we are blinking? Because we are not developed it. From day one onwards, you must write something. You must write something on your own. You must be knowing the researchers expect the research in research, the researchers are expected to give 20% originality. Rest is what is presented, you should be able to write in your own way. You should be able to write in your own style. For that, the writing skill is improved. Please focus on that writing skill. There is only one way to be a good researcher, to be a successful researcher, to have a very good, excellent career. You need to be a hard worker. In research, you will be alone. When you do your undergraduate program or postgraduate program, you will be in midst of many. They all will be studying the same subjects. So there will be a lot of learning. There will be a lot of peer group learning happening. Group studies will be happening. Team studies will be happening. But when it comes to research, especially at the highest level, like PhD level, it is all alone sailing, where only one thing will help you, that is your hard work. What hard work you have to do, I already explained. Being a reader and your technical knowledge, your statistical skills, your writing skills, and your knowledge of methods, all these you can acquire only through your hard work. You just to focus. You focus, have a multidisciplinary approach. And the most boring work is guiding, I tell you. I won't say it is research. Sometimes when I don't get sleep properly, I will open up research work of my scholar just for a lighter wine, I'm saying. And then you will immediately go for a very peaceful sleep. Only next day you will wake up to see that research project lying besides you. Even for guide, if it is such a monotonous work, you can understand the condition, pathetic condition of the researcher. It is a monotonous work. There will be no uh, uh, challenges in that unless until you create the challenge. You when you watch a movie, you like it because there will be twists and turns in that. But in research, it is the same work you will be doing it. You cannot halfway through change the goalpost. You cannot change the topic. So you develop the skill of being a self-motivator. You must know how to kill the boredom. That is only one way. You have to develop interest in your topic. You have to become an addict to your topic. All the time you will have to read your topic. Even in the dead of night, you don't get sleep or wake up halfway through your sleep. You just take up your research, do something. And then research is a long drawn work. If you are involved in that research, it is a long drawn work. There is no overnight solution available. You have to be very patient because it involves many persons. You have the availability of your guide's time, availability of the statistician's time at the advanced level, and you have to wait for the minimum period prescribed by the university. All these requires a lot of patience on your side. Once you submit also, you'll have to be very patient. So this patient is the hallmark of a good researcher. If you become impatient, what happens? haste is waste. Somehow, that is the mindset of the scholars. Somehow I'll complete it on a particular day. And some may dare to even skip a final reading also. They become so impatient, so annoyed, so irritated, so fearsome. At last stage, what happens is they will just go and submit it. You do all the rehearsals for the final show only. The country prepares the athletes for what? An athlete may do very well in the practice, in trials. But what matters is how he performs on the final day. And similarly, only your thesis, your dissertation will speak for you. You cannot say, see, I have done everything. At the last minute, all my research work collapsed. You can give no such reasons. So you have to be very patient, be patient. And then, in my opinion, the most important one is you need to be very honest and genuine. What is that honesty? How you are when you are alone. That is how honesty is measured. Nobody is ultimately going to check. Of course, now there is a plagiarism checking all that. Nobody is going to see everything of your research. It may miss the attention of the guide. It may miss the attention of the external examiner if there is a foreign examiner. But whatever may be the case, you need to be honest. If you are very honest, you will not have any fall anywhere. You will face any situation confidently. It is for you, you are doing the research. It is not for others you are doing it. Whatever you do, it is you claim ownership over it. You, as far as your project work is concerned, your thesis is concerned, you are the sole owner. And right or wrong, you have to take accountability and the responsibility. So that is why I repeatedly say you have to be honest and genuine. And finally, it is very important that you gain the respect of your guide. This is very, very simple. You can very easily gain the respect of your guide when when you complete all the prerequisites which we have just discussed. If you do all that, then quite obviously you will gain the respect of the guide. Once you gain the respect of the guide, you will feel that you will have that esteem need fulfilled. If I have to speak in terms of Maslow, you have to have that esteem need also fulfilled. In India, unfortunately, the research is done for fulfilling the lower order needs, like physiological needs, security needs, and social needs. But it is supposed to fulfill our higher order needs, esteem needs, and self actualization needs. So that is what is expected. And if you follow all these good research, if you follow all these tips, you will be a good researcher, you will have a good career. And I'll just quickly go through. I'm not going to elaborate on this. When it comes to all these areas, what is expected of you, whether it is a topic selection, review, research methodology, findings, reference format. When it comes to topic selection, you will have to compulsorily focus on these 5 areas. The one is ensure that the topic is relevant to your field of research, your specialization of your department, academic activity of the department. This is one area wherein we face a lot of problem in social sciences. They will bring in some topic which will have nothing to do with the core discipline or core academic activities, and then you will have to face problems. So even while choosing it, you ensure that it is relevant and somehow you are able to connect it. But here I would say you must go give a lot of importance for interdisciplinary topic. Now it is the world of interdisciplinary. You must be knowing about analytics. You must be knowing about data science. And every field, every other discipline is going to adopt this analytics and data sciences. It is the world of interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. I would wish that you go in for a multidisciplinary topic, but the roots should be based on your own academic field. And This is very, very important in my own opinion. Availability of supervisor. Choose the supervisor who can guide you on this topic till the end. And if you have to wait for a particular supervisor, you already zeroed in on a particular supervisor, you wait and get that supervisor for doing it. The interest, I said in the beginning, you have to have a lot of interest in the topic. You have to be patient. The interest, whether you have an interest in a particular topic or not, will be known to you based on your existing knowledge of the topic and your strength of desire, how interested you are in the particular topic. When somebody says somebody recommends a particular topic, you don't go for it. If somebody recommends a topic, even your guide recommends a topic, you just do the background of it, background work of it. You read a lot, gain knowledge about the particular topic. Not only in that particular area, in the surrounding areas also, in allied field also you read. And ultimately you decide whether you have an inherent interest in a particular topic. That is very important. Your strength of your desire will be known only through your knowledge. Otherwise, everything will look attractive. I ask you to do a research on artificial intelligence, and it will look very interesting for you. It will look very attractive because nowadays everybody talks about artificial intelligence, and everybody talks about industry 4.0. But only when you get into the topic, you will get to know all the difficulties. And once you choose the topic, there will be other sort of problems you'll have to face. So when some suggestion is given, don't take it immediately. Go and do your reading. At least 3 months of reading is necessary minimum, I'm saying, to see whether you have an inherent genuine interest in that particular area. And what is your competency? Assess it. If you have sufficient competency, well and good. Otherwise, develop your competency. That competency is needed in different domains, in data gathering, in data analysis. Then you will have to decide whether you will have the competence to do a particular topic. Yeah, research on a particular topic. Suppose you will have to go in for primary data, and which requires wide traveling, and you may have certain inherent disadvantages, and in that case your competency is limited. Then you have to be very open, frank with your guide, and you will have to tell them, no, this is not my cup of tea, I'll have to change it. Then what are the times and resources available with you, which will decide the scale of your operations. The extent of your operations will be decided by the time and resources available, that you have to make an assessment. You cannot mention it in your thesis. Due to non-availability of time and resources, I have reduced my work to this level, means they might ask, didn't you know that these were the problems earlier? That means we are not properly planned. So what happens is we ourselves make a confessional statement. Avoid such things. You see how much time is available, how much resources are. I said in the beginning, in National Geographic Channel, they do it for 20 years. I had seen one program. It is on lions, done by a couple. But they generate their own income. National Geographic Channel TV is available, magazine is available. They publish it and get a lot of money. With that, they do a self-sustaining mode. They go for a self-sustaining mode, and ultimately they publish all their articles, and all these articles are compiled and submitted for getting a degree, unlike what we do. When you go for a topic selection, ensure you follow this Mori principle. Let the topic be manageable, original, relevant, and interesting. This one area I want to say certain things. In India, perhaps in South Asia also, because we have got some of the participants from nearby also. I don't know about their condition, but here, review of literature is always underestimated. The importance of review of literature is always underestimated. But I tell you, a good examiner will first read your review of literature one. How many literatures you have reviewed? How you connect those reviews with your topic, with your methodology, with your findings. So the strength of the research work will be decided based on the extent and depth of your literatures. What do you do? What do you do here? You just going to tell this is how all others have done their work, whether it is a research plan or finding the research gap, everything will be based on this review of literature. This is how others have done their methodology. This is how others have analyzed the topic. All this will happen like that, like this one just. So in every aspect, this literature knowledge will come. So in my opinion, this is my opinion, unless until you complete your literature, at least 80% of the work you complete, you should not move to other works. Whether it is framing the questionnaire or interview schedule as the case may be, or writing that analysis part of it, for everything, this literature knowledge will help you. And everywhere you'll have to make a reference to your literature. This is how the particular researcher has done the analysis. This is how the researcher has used the statistics. This is how the particular researcher arrived at findings. But I am changing it. I am questioning what is the research. Research is very simple. Researching the existing fact. It's not that you are going to invent something new. If every knowledge is available, you are going to challenge it. And then you are going to provide a new knowledge, or you are going to confirm the existing knowledge. To prove that or disprove that, you must have the knowledge. That knowledge comes only through review of literature. So you start your work with the literature reviews. You go to the past, you go to the present, and you also can see the future. You can peep into the future by reading the conclusion part of the many articles. They will say that the future will be like that, and they will give you some glimpse of what might happen. Then your findings can confirm or disprove it, unconfirm it. So you have to take this work very seriously. But you can see the last point. You have to attract the attention, and you will have to sustain it, like a movie. Even when it comes to the opening chapter, you have to imagine a movie. They will start with a striking opening. Somebody will come out of prison. Why he comes out of the prison will be known only in the last scene. Similarly, here also you have to say, this is how it happens in the world. This is how the climate is affecting. This is how the global recession is starting. We are going to lose the job. What is the solution available? And that through that you are showing the seriousness of your topic. Oh, he wants to say something. Otherwise, if you make a very dull opening, it will be very difficult to sustain the interest. What is the success of any movie? From the beginning till the end, it should attract the attention of the person and sustain. Similarly for research also. And this is more so with regard to literature. And you have to ensure that some information helps the reader to move to the next paragraph. Logical sequencing is something different. Here, some hint about the succeeding paragraph should be provided in the preceding paragraph. That is important. And for that, you need to read a lot. And you have to read the lot of work done by the internal researchers and also national level researchers. Please understand this literature is very, very important. That decides the depth of your study and the success of your research. And the research methodology, I already said, if you want to be a good researcher, you must be very strong in methodology. Here you have to deal with the data gathering and the data analysis. Nowadays, everybody asks, how do you justify a particular method? When you go for primary data or when you go for secondary data, how do you justify it? Why do you go for that? When you go for an empirical study or exploratory study or any other study, then you will have to provide the justification. How can you give the justification? You'll have to refer to the review of literature. In a particular study, the particular researcher has used this particular and arrived at this outcome. I am also intending to travel in that same way. That is why I am using it. Or you can say in contra, he has done like this and the results are not that much relevant. So I'm using this particular technique. So it is very important that you make a reference then and there to the work done earlier. So that is very important. And once you go for data gathering, then you'll have to say why you are choosing a particular method, whether it's a questionnaire method or interview schedule method or observation method or any other recent method. Then once you go for interview, why you go for structured one or unstructured one or open-ended one. You, for everything, you are expected to provide reasons. When you will be able to give reason is only when you have the knowledge. And similarly for analysis also, or whether it is for sampling also, for everything you need to give the justification. Your research should be self-explanatory in nature, especially the methodology. Methodology, we just mentioned this study has adopted empirical study, and it has used primary data. You have to say why you are doing it. And then nobody will ask you any question. If everything is available, the examiners won't ask any question, the guide won't ask any question. You have to anticipate what type of questions might come here, and then you'll have to provide it. That is very important. And the other one, as I said earlier, in methodology, it is always good you make a reference to review of literatures. Review of literature should come here only. And similarly, whether it is statistical analysis or content analysis, whatever you do, you have to make a reference in. You'll have to give the answers here. Whether it is about population or whether it is sample, what sort of sample you are adopting, why you are adopting this particular sample, and you will have to quote somebody has adopted this method for my sampling, whether it is a proportionate random sampling or a simple random sampling or whatever other method. You have to give the reason. If you are not giving the reasons, means you have not understood it. This is how it will be interpreted, and be sure about it. Then the data analysis. This is one area you have to learn certain things. Many researchers think that they have to just explain the table. This many person belong to this category, this many person belong to. That is not that analysis. You can make a passing reference. What do you think out of that? What is the implications of that? When you do a classification, you have to give the implications of that classification. This is how I view that. As a researcher, you are entitled to have your own views. Be sure about it. You have your own views. Nobody can question your views. So you must give your views. This is what you are supposed to do. And then anything else? And here you should
Dear Malik Selvan,
can you mute? Thank you. So what happens is you should not write everything. That is the tendency I see among the researchers. Once they prepare the tables, they want to include everything. No, the flow has to be good. If you want, you have lot of tables, you have lot of explanation already. You just put it in appendix, put it at the end. But here, what is relevant, what ensures the flow of your discussion alone must be provided here. And I had written a book on human resource management. You would be surprised. I wrote 1,050 pages. And finally, they said that considering the price of the product, we cannot publish it. So it should be reduced to 600. That was the painful moment in my whole life as far as writing books is concerned. How can I reduce my 1,050 pages to 600 pages? So they were also helping. At that time, that was controlled by the Delhi office. Noida office was controlling this project. And finally, I reduced it to 688. Now, in the third edition, it is further reduced. Now they say that you will have to reduce it to the minimum. You'll have to reduce it to the minimum, and the rest of the message should be given on online mode. And now, if you see any books, they are adopting this method, and you will have to present a QR code. through that QR code, they will get connected to the net, and where they will study the rest of the informations. Now, it is a highly competitive market. Publishing market is a highly competitive market. I know how painful it would be if you have to remove certain part of your discussion, certain tables, but you have to do it, because for you it may look very good, but you must learn to see it from others' perspective. So choose only those that ensure the flow of the topic. Otherwise, the person will lose interest. When there is a jumping between the tables or discussions or paragraph, person will lose interest, and it is not properly organized. It will be the impression one would be giving. So avoid that. And here in one area, you can consult your guide and others, experts on that. And don't go only by tables, and don't put bar charts or pie charts for everything. When there is a table, there must be bar chart or pie chart is not the condition. You have to select it, and you have to do that to highlight certain points and minimize the use of unnecessary words. We call it as redundant and confusing words need to be avoided. In summary, the first one is all the summary suggestions must emanate from your discussions, must be drawn from your own study. You should not refer to some other study. What you can to support your findings, you can refer to something else, but you cannot simply lift somebody else finding and present it here. And you should not make any vague findings or vague suggestions. Everything should be factual, and everything should be objective in manner. And here also, I want to tell you, just whatever is presented in analysis, I have to represent it here. And I say this category belongs to this many person belong to this category, this many person belong to this category. I'll have to present it in findings. Please don't do that. We want you to present only the discussion aspects here. What you discussed out of the table, what you understood, what you inferred out of the table, that you present here. And this is when you write your findings and suggestions and conclusion, you must assume that you are writing a research article, not a research project. What is the condition in research article? Page numbers are restricted. So obviously we do the selection. For this, we prioritize. Similarly, you do a prioritization here also. You make an assumption you are writing a research article. Solid findings. You alone can climb it. Such findings you have to improve. What happens is, if you decide I'll remove all the last few findings, some of the relevant findings may be left out. So that is why never omit a relevant finding. You have to ensure you do a lot of reading, repeated reading, to find out what is directly relevant, what is indirectly relevant, what is irrelevant, and finally do it. By the time we reach the finding stage, we become very tired. Even while discussing with you now, I also feel tired. But when you do the work for 3 years, how much tired you would be, I can make my own imagination. But that is the very important. I said that is the climax. The whole movie finally depends on the climax. And in rehearsal also, you are presenting a play in front of audience, means everything depends on how you perform on the particular day. And similarly, your finding will speak for you. So you have to adopt a lot of time. Never reproduce your discussions, or never make your own inferences. Your inferences must come out of what is discussed there. This is very important. Make certain policy and practice recommendations. And when it comes to suggestion also, I would say the same. Decide what to be included, and then in which order it should be included. Those things should be decided. It is not that you must give a suggestion for pages and pages. For findings, for those findings where you find the viable suggestions, you give. That is why the first point, make actionable suggestions. And now we conclude. When you conclude it, you have to summarize the implications of your findings. Why do you say like this? What do you expect to achieve through these findings? How some stakeholders, the intended reader would benefit out of this? How the agriculture would benefit? How business people would benefit? How government would benefit out of? Whatever may be the intended users, how they would benefit out of that, you will have to do that. And why this project is this research work is important for all the researchers, not only for you, for all researchers, and finally end up by giving some scope. Each one counts. Each one counts for the quality of your work. If you are able to concretely say, I have done on this, you can take it further. You can prove me or disprove me, but you have a scope like this. These are the same fields, similar fields, or allied fields where there is a good scope available for researchers. So you become a matured researcher and you guide all other budding researchers by telling them you can go for this. Here there is a scope because I have already done like this. You don't reinvent the cycle. You can take it forward like this. And if you give a very solid presentation here for future researchers, and you are doing a fine job, thank you very much. And I stop short.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Um, our participants have a few questions for you, sir. Can I ask those questions?
Yeah.
So one of the participants, we are seeing millions of these journals. After exploring the research problems, should force government and authorities to solve the problem.
அதான் இவங்க முடிச்சுதான் வரணும்னாரு.
Father,
Yes.
Salvi, anybody is waiting. When is the next session? Afternoon only?
yes, Father. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Now you can ask. You repeat that. There was some distraction.
Yes, sir. We are seeing millions of thesis journals after exploring the research problems. Should force government and authorities to solve those problems, sir?
Problems, research problems, or your findings?
Yes,
Problems.
sir. Research problems or findings should force government and authorities to solve those problems, sir.
Forcing. Am I right?
Yes, sir. Force.
Okay. See, you need to understand one thing: how our research findings work. Once we submit our research, we keep it in a library, and of course, in FlipNet, it's now it is making available online also. There are pressure groups. Pressure groups means there are certain groups, activists. They will put pressure on the government to act on certain things. These pressure groups, they will read your researches and they will understand, oh, there is a new finding, there is a new problem. These pressure groups will take it up and they will cite you, and then they will put pressure on the government to act on certain things. That is one way it normally happens. Once it is published, there will be many persons who will read it, and when they find it very relevant, when they find it very authentic, they will take up the issue. That is one way. The other one, they will put force on the stakeholders to act on it, whether it is an industries or corporates or state government or central government or quasi government NGOs. They will put pressure on them, like they'll put pressure on them to act. You need not pressurize anybody to act. You, as a researcher, you made certain findings. It is for others to take it up. They will take it up and they will put pressure on the government. Not only you, based on your work, they will have a large volume of works, and based on that, they will put pressure and things will happen, provided our work is authentic. This is one thing. Other one is, you have to send your findings. Suppose you feel your findings have got a bearing on the functioning of the government or other institution, you can send it to them. You can just send, these are my findings, and you can put you can bring it to their knowledge. If it is worth considering, they will consider and they will make a change. So there are 2 points I conveyed. One is, you just write to them, create awareness. Other one is the pressure groups. They will take it up, and if it is worth compelling the government to act on that, and they will do it. But anyhow, your research should be useful. It should be the one on which they can act, and they will things will automatically. Right.
Thank you, sir. And one more question.
Yeah, please.
Being a researcher, we are facing many hurdles like experiment failures, paper rejection, time management, etc. That time we are going for depression. How to overcome such situations, sir?
Yeah, very good, very good. This is what I said. You need to be very patient. It is bound to happen. But the failure is the part of every researcher. If there is no failure means you are not doing any research work. You are not doing any serious research work. That is what we understand. If there is no, each failure is a stepping stone to success. Each failure is a stepping stone to success. You have to take it in a positive way. What is the mistake? Where I need to improve? And this is what I want to happen in our Indian research field. I want everybody to fail at least once. I want everybody to. If there is no failure, means nobody is taking your research work seriously. Nobody is criticizing your work. Your work. And failure means you find out. If it is a good publisher, means he will point out the mistakes also. This is an area where you can improve on that. There is no point in getting into depression. What you need to do is you'll have to rework. Just to take it up and rework. You can imagine we work for several days, and sometimes one chapter would be rejected. No, it doesn't fit well. I worked for 3 years, complete 3 years on my book. Sometimes I'll work for 15 days, 20 days, day and night, and then finally, no, this will go to 10 reviewers across India. It will go to 10 different reviewers, and whatever they want to write, they will write it. And when I am a manuscript reviewer, I will also do the same. What is the intention of doing that? I want that work to be improved. Quality wise, it should be improved. Don't take anything to the heart. Don't take anything personally. If you read the history of everyone, only failures have helped them in improving. So naturally, this is part of the research work. If you get depressed every time when some negative is happening, means I think there will be no improvement in your research. Instead, you take it as a challenge. You read similar articles. Suppose a particular publisher rejects your article, means you go and see how the articles appear in that particular journal. You read, then you will find out very easily. You will find out what do they expect. When some chapters are rejected, I went and read Pearson books, how they are presenting it, and then based on that I gained some idea. I made my own map. Oh, this is how it has to be done. So when you are failing, means you be happy. Ultimately, you are going to have a excellent quality work. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I request Reverend Father Dr. Radhakrishnan, head of the department, to share his words on extraordinary session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Due to technical issues, I couldn't connect while starting the session. I have enjoyed the research experience with Dr. Alexander Pravindurai. So I want everyone to have the same experience. So that only I requested Dr. Alexander Pravindurai, sir, can you take up this assignment? So happily he accepted, though he is very busy. And as Solomon sir rightly pointed out, he has a lot of commitments, and it's because of his love and concern for us, he has accepted our invitation and he is with us. Sir, I could see the overwhelming responses and appreciation from the participants. Just I want to share with you Vinodini, and she has given great insights with good examples and narratives and thirst on every aspect of research, right from the nature of study till review of literature, and setting objectives to connecting link with introduction, methodology, incorporating reviews, and data analysis and interpretation, implications, flow of discussions, conclusions, and findings. Thanks, many, sir. So, like this, we have received a lot of appreciation. So, this is the day our former President Abdul Kalam, and it's a memory of his day, and we have the great person with us, Dr. Alexander Pravindurai, and so we have no word to express his knowledge. I could say that he is a walking book of knowledge. So after seeing him, I was inspired. Then I did my research under his guidance, and really I enjoyed. And I enjoyed. See, as Dr. Alexander rightly pointed out, the failures, and that only gives us the new way. And when I did my doctorate with him, I spent a lot of failures, and I lost my computer when I went to Holy Land while returning. I lost my laptop, and I lost all my data. Then I started again, and that only gave me the boost. And that time, really, sir was packing me like anything, and it's because of his encouragement and his knowledge. I learned so much. I'm sure that all the participants they learned this, they had the same experience. And on behalf of our founder, chairman, Reverend Father Dr. J. Arulraj, our administrator, our principal, vice principals, and the PG Department of Commerce is grateful for Alexander Praveen Bhai sir, and we are happy that you have come and you are the great person for the inspiration. And moreover, we are the growing institution, and we are planning to have the NAC accreditation process. And you have rightly pointed out what is the essence or what is the importance of research and what is while teaching also. And this is the thing, and our staff members also are enlightened, and really I'm happy, sir, and I'm sincerely offer my prayers and my thanksgiving for you. And I think our students and our staff members they enjoyed with your presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
if
you.
I thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Solomon, sir. Yeah, you can proceed.
Yes. Thank you, Father. Rishi sir, are you on the line? Rishi sir?
Yes, sir, I'm on the line.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I invite Mr. Rishi sir, Assistant Professor, Peach Department of Commerce, to thank our eminent speaker.
Good morning, all. It's my immense pleasure to dedicate this vote of thanks to everyone. First, I would like to thank our resource person, Dr. Alexander Ravindurai, sharing such a great things to us. Session was very useful and informative to all. Thank you, sir. Next, I would like to thank our participants to giving their valuable time and attention to this session. Thank all our students. Now, I would like to thank our founder, Reverend Father Dr. J. Arulraj, our administrator, Reverend Sister Dr. K. Santiago Mary, our vice principals, our principal Dr. Ruben, our vice principals, Mr. Shona Alexander and Mrs. Vijayalakshmi, our head department Reverend Father Dr. Radhikala Sami, and staff members of PG Department of Commerce to making the session more knowledgeable to everyone. Thank you all. And also thank our system admin, Mr. Jayachandran, for providing technical support for this session. Thank you, sir. Once again, I thank to all aspirants to attend. Your attendance and feedback highly appreciated. Thank you all.
Solomon, sir, you can give the instructions for the next session. Solomon, sir.
Father, can you hear me?